So you saw things that really a lad at that age shouldn't see. Well, they were armed and we weren't. Well, that was the first time, yeah, and you were frightened to death. If your ship went down, there was a very, very good chance that you'd go with it. The name is Harry Black. I was actually born in Liverpool. I was born in 1927, and I went to school mainly in Wales, then came back to Liverpool just in time for the war to start. I left school at 14. When the war came, most of the schools around Liverpool were evacuated. And so I finished up with basically on my own with my father living at home, and all the rest of the family were evacuated to other places. We had the odd air raid once or twice during 1941. They used to drop leaflets, and they dropped a few bombs and incendiary type bombs and things like that. And so it wasn't very heavy, but then it started to get heavier, and we started to get 1 and 2 night raids. And then in the May of 1942, we had continuous day and night bombing for nearly 2 weeks. Horrendous, it was fairly horrendous. I was fire watching on the school roof, and one of the laddies that was with me was actually killed, and some of the fire crews, the pump crews and that, were themselves victims of the bombing. So you saw things that really a lad at that age shouldn't see, but we did. We saw all that. And I basically thought to myself, this is a little bit dangerous. I'd probably be a damn sight safer if it was in the army or something. And so that was one of the motivations for thinking about one going to the forces, basically. And there was an RAF sergeant who said to me, "Are you keen to get to join the forces, son?" And I said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Well, you know, you've got to be 16 before they'll even think about you. The Royal Navy will take you when you're 16, you know." So I wandered across to the Royal Naval place, and there was a very nice old gentleman there. He said, "How old are you now?" So I thought for a moment or two, and I said, "Well, I'll be 16 in a few days." So he said, "Oh, when were you born?" So I said, "Oh, 9th of the 6th, 1926. And he said, "Are you sure?" And I said, "Of course I'm sure." So he said, "Right, we'll talk about you joining the Navy." I packed my case and I got myself organised, and off I went on the train to Skegness. And when I got there was a man on the platform dressed in what I found out later was naval uniform, and he was shouting his head off, and I couldn't understand what the devil he was talking about. He was actually shouting "Roll Arthur, Roll Arthur," and that turned out to be the name of the depot that I was going to go to, HMS Royal Arthur. So I kept a good sharp eye out and looking for this great battleship that I was about to go and get command of. And I never saw it. I couldn't see one. And we eventually turned into a gate which said Butlin's Holiday Camp, Skegness. And then underneath it was a paper that said Royal Naval Induction Depot, Skegness, HMS Royal Arthur.
So basic training lasted how long, Harry?
Well, we came from Skegness, and I was then posted to a place called in Earlham called HMS Gosling. And there they taught us how to shoot a rifle and throw a hand grenade. And why anybody, a Matlow at sea, would want to shoot a rifle and throw a hand grenade, I do not know, but nevertheless, that's what we were taught. My dad actually worked in Manchester. He was in the newspaper business. And when we were allowed ashore, although we were already ashore, I used to hitch a lift into Manchester, go and see my dad, and it was about 8 o'clock time, I'd see him. he would be having his break along with the rest of his crew. They would invariably do a quick whip round, and I'd come away with 10 shillings in my pocket. And I was posted to Lowestoft to an air-sea rescue launch group, 5 launches, Vosper launches, which was rather nice because apparently the effect of sinking the Royal Oak with 800 boy seamen on board was still being felt very, very much. And they wouldn't put a boy on a fighting ship. And so I was posted to what was not supposed to be not a fighting ship. That was the air-sea rescue service. You'd go out and you'd take up your position wherever it was in the North Sea. And you just wait there, and you put a sheet anchor down, and you wait for an aircraft, either ours or theirs, to drop into the drink, and you would go and rescue the pilot. You pick up the odd pilot, mostly RAF, but occasionally they would pick up a German, and when they did, miraculously, you'd get a German E-boat alongside very quickly, and they'd take their own back if they could, and they'd also ask you for cigarettes and whiskey and things like that.
But you were happy to exchange the prisoner?
Oh, well, they were armed and we weren't.
So you're coming face to face with an armed enemy
for
the first time, presumably.
Well, that was the first time, yeah, and you were frightened to death.
Yeah.
Because they could blow you out the water as quick as that, but they never did. Yeah.
How long did you spend in air-sea rescue?
Oh, not very long, unfortunately. It was a great job, and I loved it. I loved it a bit. But unfortunately, the Royal Air Force decided that they were going to expand their Marine division. And they said to us, well, you can stay on the boats if you want, but you'd have to become members of the Royal Air Force, change service. Or if you didn't want to do that, you could remuster and go back into Royal Naval Service. And I thought, well, I don't really want to be a Brookgreen boy, so I'll stay with the Navy. So I stayed with the Navy and we left, and I went back to Leon Solent then, which was my depot. I was posted to a ship called the Colossus, an aircraft carrier that was running in close contact with a French ship called the Richelieu. And so for a very brief period of time, I actually served with the Free French Navy. The next posting was to the Indomitable, which was a fleet carrier, a heavy fleet carrier. She was what they used to call an illustrious class carrier. Well, my official rating was as an engine mechanic, as an engine, aircraft engine mechanic. The aircraft engine was usually started with a cartridge. So you had to sort of prime the thing, get it right, blow your cartridge, and the engine should then start. If it didn't, you had to start all over again. And you couldn't afford that waste of time. So they had to be spot on and start up right away. And my aircraft always did. Well, barracudas and some of the old swordfish and things like, there was quite a few of the later style, Corsairs and things like that. Yeah. You get an airplane like the Spitfire. Taking off wasn't too bad because you catapulted them off. Coming back on again, they were a bit of a devil to land, and they were not very, very popular amongst the pilots, I tell you, for landing. They were great when they were flying, but they were not very good at landing, and we lost as many aircraft landing on the ship as we did in the air.
Really?
Yeah. Well, she operated in whole waters to start with, the Mediterranean, North Sea. Some of her aircraft flew off to attack the Tirpitz and things like that, She got pretty badly battered in the Med. She was withdrawn from service and sent to Norfolk in America for almost rebuilding. She caught a rock, a pinnacle rock, coming out of Jamaica, and it damaged her bows, and she had to go back in again and get a new bow fitted. And she had been allocated to be deployed in the Pacific. She didn't get out into the Pacific in time to do what she was supposed to be doing. The Japanese Navy had some wonderful ships, some really, really beautiful ships. One or two of them came out on their maiden voyage, so we sank them. And every time we came across one or two, we sank as many as we could. So we actually destroyed the Japanese Navy, the suicide bombers, and they were a bit of a pain. We took a hammering, quite a lot, and the ship's steering was damaged, and she was badly damaged. She got a little bit of sticking plaster shoved on her, just to sort of plug a hole and things like that. At first, the first time it ever happens to you, when you're dodging bombs and bullets and things, obviously you're scared to death. I mean, I make no bones about it. I was frightened to death at times. But I'd got over all that with the blitzers and things. And so when it came to being under fire again, if that's the expression, all I was interested in is, well, where can I duck into? Where can I shelter? I wasn't really frightened or anything. And funnily enough, you took it in your stride, the fact that if your ship went down, there was a very, very good chance that you'd go with it. Because when Royal Navy ships go down under battle conditions, you don't get an awful lot of survivors. And we knew that. You had the greatest faith in the ship. You really did. I mean, you became part of the ship in that. To you, it was solid ground. When we went into Hong Kong, nobody had told them that they surrendered. They didn't believe it. But there were little islands up towards Macau, around that area, where the Japanese had suicide boats, little motor launches that were actually filled with TNT or explosives of some sort. I mean, they were easy enough to pop off, and when you hit them, they just blew up, But they were a nuisance. Then we went ashore on lighters, and we went into Hong Kong. There was a smallpox epidemic in Hong Kong at the time. Then eventually we were up sticks and we went back to Singapore, and they dropped us off in Singapore. We were stuck there for a while, and after a bit we said, are we going home or what, And they said, oh, blimey, forgot about you lot. They said, right, we've got your ship, and we're all on our way home. So, okay, fine. And we got down to this ship, and it was one of the worst rust buckets I've ever known. And we came home, and she was rattled all the way home. She lost the screw coming across lost the propeller going across the Bay of Biscay. And they pulled us into Southampton because she was a civilian boat. And when we came off, we were met by the customs office. And they said, oh, well, the war's been over 12 months. You've had plenty of time to go shopping, so let's see what you've got. And they made us take all our kit, every bit, and they went right through it, and they actually charged an awful lot of the lads tax on some of the stuff that they were taking home for their loved ones. So we had no bands, no welcome home lads, no nothing like that. Then we went to Havant, got kitted out, trilby hats and shoes and herringbone jerseys and things like that, and demobbed. To start with, we'd been forgotten, and we were known as the Forgotten Navy. All the celebrations were VE Day celebrations. As far as we were concerned, we came home and they were saying, "Hello, lad, how are you?" Nobody seems to accept that we'd been part of the war as well, and it was a little bit annoying. I mean, even the campaign medals that we were given, naval medals don't even have your name on them. It was a feeling, a total feeling of disillusionment, if you like, you know. Whilst I thoroughly enjoyed the service in the Navy, nevertheless, there was always the feeling that there was somebody else pulling the strings. I had an ambition. I wanted to join the police, and I met a wonderful girl as well. The police service then, Liverpool Police, had also ran the fire brigade. It was a police fire brigade. My wife-to-be would prefer me to be in the fire brigade. And on top of all that, a fireman actually got 8 shillings a week more than a policeman. So I stayed with the fire brigade. Unfortunately, she died in 2012. And that's another story. 62 years we had together as married, and 3 years before that. So
where did you meet?
In Liverpool. Yeah, she fell off her bike. Yeah, got over a bike caught in the tram lines, and I ran across and said to her, "Keep still, I'm a police officer." There it went from there.
Fabulous.
I lost my wife, and Freemason became a hidey hole because of all the places that we used to go to. The one place where I never ever expected to see her was when you went into a lodge room. And so that gave you a respite, shall we say, from the fact that she wasn't in the picture anymore. I didn't expect to see her, and so I didn't have the same feeling of loneliness. I felt more amongst friends than anywhere else, and that's what Freemason came to me. It became an essential part of my life because it was the only place I could go where I didn't have to think about my life with my wife. You know, it was my refuge, if you like.
A temporary respite.
Yeah, temporary respite. Yeah. Men will never live in peace. I would love to think of a world that could live in peace with their neighbours, but they never will. They never will. It'll never be that way. I look back and think to myself, well, been there, done that, got that T-shirt. I don't think I'd want to do it again.